This is the aircraft history of these three aircraft. I love this particular plane as it flew local to where I used to live. Supermarine Spitfire Mark 1 KLB P7350, built in 1940. It is the only airworthy Spitfire that flew in the Battle of Britain. It flew with 54 Squadron. It was flown by New Zealand pilot Al Deer, hence the Kiwi motive on the side. By the end of the war, he was credited with the destruction of 22 enemy aircraft that ranks him as second highest scoring New Zealand fighter ace. Later research has seen this total revised to 17 victories. Curtiss P40 Warhawk number 47. It was flown by Claire Channell, part of the Flying Tigers. This plane had an insignia designed by Walt Disney of a winged tiger. The aircraft's wing features Chinese Air Force roundels of the AVG, the American Volunteer Group. The AVG were very successful in exploiting the low-level capabilities of this aircraft. In Britain, it was named the Kitty Hawk. Messerschmitt Bf-109 White 14. The aircraft was also flown in the Battle of Britain by Hans Joachim Marcel, the highest scoring ace in the North African campaign, who shot down 158 enemy aircraft. But in the Battle of Britain, he shot down 6 and himself was shot down 4 times. The Bf-109 also shot down more Allied planes than any other aircraft. It was notoriously difficult to take off and land, and quite a few pilots succumbed to this. The Messerschmitt nevertheless remained a formidable adversary until the last day of the war. This particular Spitfire had 3 props when it flew. Airfix made a 1/24 scale model of the same plane. There were 2-bladed versions of the Mark 1 Spitfire used earlier than the Battle of Britain period, and so you can fly this model on either 2 or 3 blades. This is the underneath of the Spitfire. You can remove this inspection cover carefully and get to the servos for the rudder, elevator and aileron. This is the rudder linkage and the elevator linkage. There's also an inspection hatch for the motor and gearbox, and that's where the power pack goes. There is some damage around the aircraft. I did on one occasion split through the front of the fuselage on a heavy landing at full throttle. I glued that with Yoo-hoo glue and I've touched it in with paint. In some areas it's fairly invisible, in others it's not. The paint also wears off of this model where you handle it. I'll have to keep touching up the paint. Perhaps later models will have a more resilient paint. Here's the Kiwi emblem on the side. The spinners are prone to getting damaged if the prop gets damaged, so I would look after these spinners. They're different shape and colour to the other planes. So I'm going to get another one of these that I'm going to keep in mint condition. This plane has hatches to get to the motor and gearbox and the servos. These are the servo horn and rods connecting to the aileron linkages. This is the rudder gear and the elevator gear. You can adjust and bend this little tower if you need to get it to track straight on landing. You have a little bit of authority using the rudder. Not much on these planes. Now this plane I've flown a few times. There's a little wear and tear on it. Nothing much though. and the paint is holding up nicely. With the Spitfire it wears off as you handle it, with this one and the P40 it doesn't. Doesn't this look beautiful? I've flown this aircraft 4 times and I really enjoy the way this one looks. The paint doesn't wear off as easily as on the Spitfire. In fact, it hasn't worn off at all where I've handled it. Although I've flown it 4 times and I actually smashed the servo horn and have replaced that, you wouldn't know it. It still looks mint. So I've kind of retired this plane. Just love the way it looks though. So my favourite plane in terms of looks is this one, the P40. My favourite plane in terms of how it flies is this one, the Spitfire. My favourite plane though, in terms of how it flies in expert mode, is this one. Seems the most stable, or the most trimmed out of the box. These are my 3 Volantex or Sonic RC foamie trainers. They are 400mm Warbirds and they have helped teach me to fly along with the Sport Cub 500.